Hi, this is Anna London with Cyvergence, and in this episode, we're going to be talking about how to actually encourage employee accountability. So, accountability is in the workplace, involves setting and holding people to a common expectation by clearly defining the company's mission, vision, values, and goals. And to be accountable in the workplace, you need to attend work for the agreed upon hours, independently complete all responsibilities included in the job description, complete all other assigned tasks, maintain a satisfactory and consistent quality of work, collaborate with peers and accept the division of labor, communicate with management about updates or challenges, right? On and on and on. Sounds easy, right? Wrong. Because what we have today are a bunch of folks that it's all in, what are you going to do for me? Not what are they going to do for you or serve the organization. It's very selfish for the great breadth of it. And folks just don't, ethics are out the door, integrity's out the door. It's all about me instead of we, okay? People are, quiet quitting, right? Ghosting teams. It's just ridiculous, right? But let's talk about then. So those are some problems. Let's talk about what we can do, right? So we're going to talk about how we can actually encourage employee accountability, right? Because also, it's leadership as well, right? We have to be accountable as well. So, but how do we do this? Look, companies for ages have been struggling to define and improve accountability processes, from annual performance appraisals to routine check-ins with the boss, and for decades. And, most employees still dread the conversations. Most result in biases, right? Or I'm not talking about, the traditional biases we've heard in the last 3 years. I'm talking about biases when it comes to, when you're getting pulled in for appraisal, right? An annual review, it's almost like going to the principal's office, right? So, fewer words in corporate vernacular induce a tighter wince than accountability, okay? Companies and leaders have grappled with what it is and how to achieve it effectively for decades. Ask anyone if they look forward to their performance evaluation or periodic check-in with their boss, and most will give an emphatic no. So, it's true, right? That's for all of us, Data shows that 82% of managers acknowledge they have limited to no ability to hold others accountable successfully, and 91% of employees would say that effectively holding others accountable is one of their company's top leadership development needs. Research also confirms how insignificant today's accountability systems make employees feel. A Gallup poll found that only 14% of employees feel that their performance is managed in a way that motivates them. 26% get feedback less than once per year, and 21% feel their performance metrics are within their control, and 40% feel as if their manager holds them accountable for goals they set. Add to that the fact that 70% of employees feel their managers aren't objective in how they evaluate their performance, and it comes as no surprise that 69% of employees don't feel they're living up to their potential at work either, right? The fundamental problem with accountability is that it now involves a little more than just the process of accounting. The scorekeeping nature of this process yields a built-in negativity bias, where leaders reflexively hunt for shortfalls, okay? And the tallying usually ends up with a forced categorization, a rating system of numbers or labels, and sometimes stack ranking employees against their peers, So as an example, right, let's talk about, client organization, speaking with the leader, right? And just after their performance review, the employee was infuriated. Right? The response is, how could he rate me a 3? I've always been a 4. My whole career, I've been rated at the top. Now suddenly I'm a 3 just because he's only allowed to give out a certain number of 4s, right? So, listen to the painful conclusions this leader is drawing about himself and his boss. What should have been a productive conversation left him obsessed with the number and resentful of the person who consigned him to it. And he's not alone. A recent neuroscientific study revealed that we respond to being categorically rated with a sense of being threatened, and we literally feel unsafe when someone puts us in a box in this way. Accountability processes are the formal and informal ways that leaders talk about, assess, and affirm the contributions of those they lead and the improvements they can make to strengthen those contributions. They include everything from annual performance appraisals to routine check-ins with your boss. Even the face, in the face, right? When you deal with deeply flawed formal processes, leaders can ensure that their employees feel their work is honored while simultaneously embracing opportunities to improve. To make that experience commonplace, mere tweaks to the tallying processes of accountability won't move the needle, okay? Companies must dramatically redefine what it means for leaders to create a culture of accountability. Based on my 30 years of observing leaders who do this well, and through my research on accountability, I've identified 3 major shifts leaders need to make to ensure that the accountability experience dignifies employees' work and challenges, everyone, right, to make greater achievements. Without making them feel demeaned or insignificant as well, right, which can be sometimes difficult to do, right? Especially in this day and age, okay, when feelings matter, okay, it should be objectivity, okay, and merit, okay, honestly, over feelings, but we have to, kind of tailor in all of that and take everything in consideration, right? So we kind of can't get away with it the way that everything has shifted, the social dynamic and dichotomy of the, mental health stigma and, opinions, and, it's become almost a nightmare for employers to manage, right? But, okay, there is a solution. So we're going to talk about that, okay? So you want to make dignity the foundation, okay? Managers must understand the weight of their own judgments. A recent study of the brain shows how other people's opinions of us influence our sense of self, efficacy, okay? When leaders believe their role is to create conditions in which people make their best contributions and genuinely enjoy doing so, the following core foundations of accountability improve, okay? So number 1 is connections between leaders and direct reports deepen, okay? So instead of obligatory monthly or quarterly check-ins during which employees provide rote, updates, conversation should be undergirded by a sense of purpose. So, questions like, what did you learn this month? Or what do you feel most proud of? Stirs employees' eagerness to tell their stories of achievement and struggle, right? The quality of feedback and learning increases as well. So when dignity and not surveillance is the goal of accountability, the quality of evaluative feedback improves. Okay, not just by a small margin, by a huge margin, right? So when employees feel their bosses are genuinely interested in their success, they feel less guarded and less inclined to hide their underperformance. When bosses are committed to their employees' success and are less focused on documentation, they feel comfortable offering feedback and coaching about underperformance, right? But when we talk with HR, what have you, right, you need documents, okay? You need documentation because there's an audit trail, right, for good and bad employees, right? So to show also when there's to bolster, someone's promotion, right? Or to, put somebody on a performance improvement plan, right? So you need documentation so that you can avoid litigation as an employer, okay, on both fronts. All right, so definitely manage and keep documentation on your employees. And I'm talking about being the watch, being the big brother or anything like that, but you have to do that because then, you never know, 2 years later, somebody gets upset, they start a litigation, right? And then you have no idea who that person is because it was 2 years ago, right? You may not remember that person, maybe you do. But again, it's his or her word against yours. And unless you're able to provide documentation to show, right, either way. Now, I do project charters, and I have my team leads also do, fill out project charters with RACI charts, responsible, accountable, et cetera, right? And the reason why I do that is because, and then they can look at, okay, so here's the team members, here's the project, here's the team members, here's going to be when we're going to meet, right? Here are the tasks, right? And then therefore, if they have to reallocate, okay, a task to somebody else because a person on that team decided to ghost them, right? Then that's all documented there. Initially assigned task on this date, followed up on this date. Here's the email, here's 3 emails, right, governing that we followed up with you and what have you. I prefer emails and even text messages. And the reason why I say this is because when you call somebody, right, or even like record a meeting, record your Zoom, okay, or MS Teams or whatever, okay, because then you can always go back. You can keep it as a matter of record, right? Because some people will try to, defer and deflect or say, no, I was there, or I did this, or I did that, or I'm not getting enough, or put it on the boss, right? Put it on the team lead, when in fact it was them. The team lead actually made a concerted effort to reach out, include them in the project, right? But they just refused just not to do it, right? They just, were inept. They just ghosted. Okay, so very unprofessional. But you'll get that. Students also, student assignments, same thing. I always give, when it's a group assignment, I always told the students to choose a team lead, right? Vote in a team lead, and then fill out the project charter, the project team charter, and the RACI chart, okay, and keep that a matter of record, because then what happens is, right, there's a deliverable deadline anyways, okay? So if you're not, so what ends up happening is, if that team, right, they're going to have to do, perform the task anyways to get the assignment done, right, or the deliverable done by, in time, so they can either get a good grade or meet the client's requirements, right, and needs. So they have to get it done regardless. And so sometimes you do have to reallocate to someone else, okay? And I'm not talking about for a legitimate cause, like, people get sick, things like that happen, but I'm talking about a pattern, okay, a pattern. Of just somebody just blatantly, overtly, just, not performing, okay? Then, of course, you initially assign on this date, here's the email, here's the meeting, recording, right, etc. Right, I've reached out to this person 2 or 3 times. They just haven't shown up to the meetings, or maybe they showed up to one and then that's it, didn't do anything, right? Because if you don't handle it, okay, then what ends up happening is that team that actually did the work, and the people that actually had to pick up the slack for that person that wasn't doing their job and wasn't performing, right, ends up becoming resentful, right? So you have to deal with that. And then what ends up happening is you end up losing your A team, right, your great performers, because then you accommodate the poor performer, okay? But and then with the poor performer, then you have adequate documentation to bring to them, black and white, and say, okay, I get that's what you're saying, that you're putting it off on the leader didn't assign, but according to this, right, the initial task was assigned on this date. The meetings were held on these dates. Why was I made aware? Well, actually, yes, you were. And, even with the read receipt and the email, right, it shows that you actually opened the email. You actually were made aware of the meeting frequencies, right? You just failed to show up, right? So you have a counter, okay? And you have documentation, right? But you work with them and say, okay, let's then talk about ways we can improve upon your performance, right? And of course, put them on a performance improvement plan. And if it continues to be a pattern of behavior, then you have adequate documentation, an audit trail by which then, to dismiss that person if you need to, right? But furthermore, the high performance, you also have documentation to support also promoting them, right? And then therefore, if that poor performer that hasn't been terminated yet, right, or what have you, is upset, and they say, well, this person got promoted over me, I've been here longer. Well, yeah, but your performance over time, right, has been subpar, and we've notified you, we've been working with you, we've been putting you through training and a variety of things, right, and just haven't stepped up. Right, you're lucky you have a job, really, honestly, right, or what have you. But you end up losing the poor performance, right? So it's important to, give credit to the people on your team that are actually doing the work, right? And those that are not, work with them to step up, But then if they're not, maybe that's not the right job for them. Okay, maybe they need to be moved over to another position, maybe that they can thrive in. Okay, that's an option too. Or if in fact, they're just not working out, then you just need to, I'm sorry, but you need to let them go, okay? That's also better for them, okay? And hopefully they'll learn from it, right? But having that documentation, that audit trail will actually help you as an employer, right, with regard to any future litigation that might come up, because you need documentation that he said, she said, the word of mouth, if you will, is not going to cut it in the court of law. Sorry, it's not, right? So let's talk about, let's talk about, look, when employees do believe their bosses are genuinely interested in their success, they feel less guarded and less inclined to hide their underperformance, okay? And when bosses are committed to their employee success and are less focused on documentation, right? Like I was saying before, they feel comfortable offering feedback and coaching, about underperformance. I always have folks fill out after action reviews, right? After the project, after a SOC shift, what went right, what went wrong, what can we do better, right? I have everyone fill out a weekly AAR as well, after action review, what we did right, what we did wrong, what can we do better? So, and I have it to where they can fill it out anonymous, or provide their email and name if they want to be contacted. But those have been very effective because you do have some quiet folks that won't say anything, right? And that's a good way to capture data, okay? And leave it open-ended and allow everyone to feel comfortable, right, with bringing things forward. They might not have a solution for the problem, but allow them to, I always remind folks, bring it up, but remember to be respectful, right? Nobody wants to be disrespected, not even me, right? Nobody wants to be in a toxic environment, okay? But everyone's voice deserves to be heard. It does, okay? Look, one of the simplest ways to dignify those we lead is to ask for the story of their work. So instead of offering a perfunctory good job after somebody has finished a project, ask for details. I'm sure it took more to get here than I can see. Can you talk to me about how you did it? Could be an example of what you could, ask, right? As they tell their story, watch how animated they become as they tell you where they struggled and what they felt proud of, right? Sometimes it's gaining confidence, right? So I have a lot of entry-level folks too that come through, students and interns and stuff. So it's a lot of times just building confidence as well in themselves. And this is a good way to do that too. Focus on fairness, when accountability systems are seen as fair, people are 4 times likely to be honest. Yes, 4 times likely to be honest, especially about their mistakes. Act fairly toward others and serve the organization's purpose instead of their own interest, which seem to be a commonplace, right? Everybody's kind of selfish at the moment. Me. What do I get out of it? What do I get out of it? Our accountability systems have painfully confused sameness with fairness and have been designed largely to avoid litigation and reduce the manager's biases, right? But we have to do that. That's my point. We have to do that. Otherwise, we'll get fined or whatever, and it could be a misunderstanding or whatever, but, if somebody claims something, we said something, did something, fired them without cause, whatever it is, right? If we don't have the documentation to substantiate that, right, then it makes us look bad, and it makes us look, then they, how you're going to counter then bad press and a variety of other things, right? So you still have to have documentation, okay? But in practice, right, folks, dealing with the sameness and fairness, right? The documentation. Sometimes, if it's not done correctly, it can do more to stunt individuality, and that's exactly what makes them unfair. Okay, so when you do the calculations, right, what we call key performance indicators, right, it either is or it isn't, right? So it's important that you develop KPIs and also communicate expectations, right? With folks so they understand, okay, what are the metrics? Like, what are the goals? What's in like a rubric, if you look at a rubric, right? So what do I need though to get an A, right? Where are the areas that's heavily weighted so I can concentrate on that, right? So what are you looking for? What's the expectation? What do you deem as being my good performance, right? What would you deem being a bad performance, right? So also, again, communication is bi-directional, not just one way, not from manager to employee. Employees, though, need to foster better communication skills too and ask. A lot of people don't ask, okay? They just assume, okay? And that ends up becoming a problem too, is the communication aspect in the accountability process. And it shouldn't be a once a year, every 3 months, right? It should be ongoing, honestly, talking with your employees. So prioritizing fairness in our accountability processes allows 2 very important things to change. First, it reestablishes the connection between contribution and contributor. For decades, in an attempt to create fairness, conventional thinking has kept the evaluation of work separate from the evaluation of people. And this made sense when people were producing large volumes of the same output. But in a knowledge economy, right, people's ideas, creativity, and analyses are direct reflections of who they are. The nature of today's work makes accountability personal. It becomes fair when managers acknowledge contributions as the fruit of the unique talents of their employees. Efforts to force contribution and contributor apart are experienced as invalidating and unfair. Okay? So, secondly, we want to focus on the fairness, okay? Because that'll expose biases within accountability systems. Plenty of research shows that organizations privilege certain groups via implicit biases within their accountability systems. Okay, viewing these systems through the lens of fairness prompts honest questions about how we can change them. So who has access to the prize opportunities? What are the existing expectations about who will or won't excel? Whose voices and ideas get included? Whose don't, right? Questions like these reveal whether there's equitable opportunity to succeed, regardless of one's level of ability. Okay, and enable leaders to open up opportunities for people to shine with whatever talents they have, right? Look, there's those go-to employees, obviously, that are there. They've been there for a while. They're, what we call the go-to, the high speed, low drag, right? And they get assigned a lot, but you have to look across the team. Who else maybe has a little, less bandwidth, right? That you can actually apply or help bring them up through the ranks. And so, your high value, high charging, if you will, high performing employee doesn't get overwhelmed, right? And then feel it's taken on too much and then leave anyways because they get burned out. But then also you're helping your other team members grow and everybody feels like a team. So it's more equitable, right? The work also is distributed more equitably and everybody feels, okay, well, I don't have enough versus another person has too much, right? That's also unfair too, right? And so it shouldn't be also the number of, KPIs shouldn't be done about the number of projects somebody has either. It should be the quality of the projects, right, and what they've done. Okay, so, for example, we as leaders can broaden who gets to speak and present at meetings, or take a new approach to acknowledging traditionally privileged roles like engineers at tech companies or marketers at branding companies that levels the playing field for other types of contributions. Okay, so, there's lots of different different ways that we can do this, okay? Make restoration, not blame, the goal, So, people do dread accountability in their organizations. Why? Because when consequences are levied, they often feel shamed and harsh, and despite corporate rhetoric about learning from failures, the reflexive response really is to hide mistakes or point fingers elsewhere. And this happens in cybersecurity too. Instead of looking and just throw all the dirty laundry on the table and say, okay, don't point the finger, but it's okay. What's done is done. But we need to now fix it. Let's talk about then how we can fix it. Okay. Do a root cause analysis and really understand, okay, how you can fix the problem and work with your team to do that. Okay. Without pointing fingers. Okay. If leaders believe that falling short of a goal still had merit, it could radically alter how people treat their own and others' mistakes. Okay. In a culture where people struggle to admit that they don't know something, calculating risk can be tricky. And being open about failure helps us balance a growth mindset with accountability. We are learning to not just reward success, but also reward people who fell short while getting us closer. We want it to be acceptable to say, I don't know, but I will find out, right? Learning from our mistakes gets us closer to our desired results, and that's a new form of accountability for us. Right? Don't you agree? So to treat mistakes restoratively, leaders need humility, grace, and patience. Okay? And we must see any person's arc of professional success has more than the sum total of any single assignment. Okay? Let's be real. Leaders, also need the humility to acknowledge their contribution to people's failures as well, right? Did the person have the resources, skills, team support, and realistic timelines to be successful? Okay. We have a long way to go before accountability within organizations becomes a welcome process that yields fair, actionable feedback and encourages employees to embrace the opportunity to improve their performance and expand their contributions. Making dignity, fairness, and restoration foundational components of accountability systems is a powerful place to start. So with that said, I hope this has been helpful and of value to you that are listening. My name is Anna London with Cyvergence.ai, signing out.